And we like get a little bar thing.
Oh yeah. Drag it to the other screen.
This is from the internship thing. You can choose so many credits you want to do. For what?
All right. So welcome to Intro to Windows Hacking, Recon to Full Access. I'm just gonna try and cover like some of the basics of everything, some common exploits, how Recon differs from Linux, and how you can try and get system access. So it's important that you're careful when you do any pen testing or hacking, because you need to make sure you're connected to the practice environment. Like if you're doing hack the box, you're using the open VPN, that kind of stuff. Because if you run like an nmap on the UF network, they're going to get very upset with you and you will have to talk to them. So always be careful, always make sure that you are connected. But yeah, the recon. So window nmap scans, they're a little different from Linux. Windows has very restrictive firewalls. They often like close the port so it doesn't even look like they have anything. If you try and ping it, it'll just drop and it'll act like it's not even on. But that's also a good indicator of the firewall status, because if you do see things, the firewall is either very insecure or it's just off, which is pretty often in practice environments so that you're able to easily infiltrate. The most common ports are SMB, RDP, WinRM, and then here are some scans you can do. TAC-A will do an aggressive scan. So it'll try different scripts against it. It'll get the OS, it'll get the versions. It'll find a whole bunch of different stuff about that. And on the right, I got those two images. The top one is what it looks like when the firewall is on. So you can see after doing like a long scan on it, it finds that they are open, but they're filtered. And it just takes a while to scan stuff like that. But the bottom one is what it looks like when the firewall is off. So you can see it has a ton of different services on it. They're just always normally hidden when the firewall is on. So some common services and vulnerabilities. So start off with SMB, the different password attacks. So you can do null session and anonymous login. So you can go ahead and see all the shares of the user group and the info, get so much info about the machine and the files that are on the machine without any creds. No username, no password, and get straight in. You can use npacket or netexec for these attacks. I prefer npacket personally, but you can use netexec as well. You can do password spraying, but you need to check the password policy. It's also very noisy, so you might get detected. And, if you do get locked out, that's not very good. So always check the policy first. Here's a, oh, hey, Nathan. I don't think it is. Anonymous is might be default, I think, but null session, I'm pretty sure you have to set up. Um, yeah, it's normally they're not active, but it's always something to test. But this is what an SMB looks like. You can use SMB client to interact with it, and you can see that you can find all the share names and all the files on the machine just through the SMB share. Also a big one, internal blue. It was the NSA tool that was leaked by the shadow brokers, a whole big deal. Um, Pretty much a 0 day the NSA was holding on to, and shadow brokers just released it to everyone and said, have fun. Big story to that, but that's the short answer to it. So it targets SMB v1 over the SMB port for legacy systems. It can still hit Windows 10 and Server 2016 if they haven't been patched, but it gives you full system level control. But it is very unstable, and you do not want to run this in most occasions. If you're ever doing a pen test, just don't even try. Because if you don't patch it after you break in, it's gonna just break the whole thing. So yeah, try not to run it, but it's a very cool one. Um, I personally do not know, but I just know that it breaks things, so I don't mess with it. Yeah, you will?
I was just thinking, like an exploit, like of some type of like memory corruption vulnerability. So it works sometimes if like you can correctly guess the location in memory that you're at, and it won't work other times, but patches some other time because you'll overwrite something that you should have. So yeah.
Very nice. Cool to learn that. Yeah. And then RDP is another major service. The two big attacks on there is Blue Keep and Deja Blue. So Blue Keep exploits the weak protocol services, and you get full system access using the Metasploit module, and it's for older systems. Deja Blue is up for a lot newer systems, and there's a whole pack of it. There's several different exploits for it. Um, and yeah, you can just match the different modules and the versions to test it out. And you can also do session hijacking. If you do have privileges on the system and you see that there's multiple RDP sessions coming in, you can take over their RDP session and do whatever you want with it, really. And then you can do some clipboard and drive redirection attacks to transfer files and sensitive data, and you don't even need a password for it. WinRM is another big one. You can do remote commands and file transfers. So you can log in without a password, or sorry, with a password or an NTM hash, and you use a little tool called Evil WinRM. Little Halloween season for us right now, I guess. And yeah, it creates a whole shell, gives you major access. It's a big pen testing tool. And you can also do password spraying as well. You can do that for most services. But yeah, always password policy. You want to check that. LDAP is another big one. So LDAP is pretty much a service where you can query the Active Directory to try and get a whole bunch of information about the system. And when you do that, you want to try and map it out and find what you want to attack. You can find a whole bunch of different stuff about the domain. And then it can allow anonymous or no queries, like for login, no password or username, but it's not that often. So I wouldn't really personally rely on that attack, but you can try. But the big thing for LDAP to map it out and get all the attacks is, oh, well, first, here are some query examples just to see what it kind of looks like. You can use LDAP search, pretty good, but Nmap also has the LDAP search script if you want to use that as well. But the big thing is Bloodhound. So Bloodhound goes and does all the queries itself and gets all the like info. Typically, you're going to be running it from like a Kali, so you'd want to use the Linux command right there, Python 3, bloodhound.py. It's important. Bloodhound and bloodhound.py are two separate things you need to install. Um, but yeah, so it'll go ahead and visualize everything, and you want to focus on the outpass because it'll show your user, and you want to see what your user can do to other users and other groups, not focus too much on what is coming into it. And here's an example of it visualizing. So, sorry, with this image at the top, that's the command you'll run to like get the info, and then you'll go to the web page with the Bloodhound interface. And here's the drawing. So as you can see, the members at the bottom, they're members of the domain users group, and you can see the out chain that connects and goes all the way to domain admins. And so if you keep following those chains, you can look up the little information on them, how to exploit it and everything. And you can go all the way up and privilege escalate to admin. Typically, there's a lot of write-ups about this, so it's pretty good to follow. And then, yeah, MSQL. So you can mess around with the XP CMD shell and connect to get all the sensitive info on the datas. So you can also hash capture and coercion for this. Request files from the attacker's SMB share and trigger outbound SMB. So you can capture that and send a query to get the share files. And here's a little example of what it looks like. You'll use Impacket for it with some login in the IP, and it'll be able to go in and exploit it and get all the files you want and create a shell. Yeah. It's a good question. Um, Microsoft does a lot of weird things.
Doesn't always configure it to because sometimes you might need to, I don't know what does. Sometimes you might need to, and then Microsoft has very kindly thought of that possibility. You need a technically the permissions that only administrators have by default, but sometimes it's just granted them.
Yep. All right. And so some other common attacks that you've probably heard about that aren't directly related to services. So you have Kerberos, Kerberosing and AS rep roasting. They're very big vulnerabilities. Pretty much every CBTC report that you'll find, pretty much all of them have had Kerberosing. So there's a whole process of AD and tickets and everything, but the gist of it is you're going to request a service principal name ticket, and they're encrypted with the target's account hash. So you can take that and decrypt it with a tool called Hashcat, and you'll need valid creds for the base domain user if you want to do this. But then with decrypting it, you'll get the entire password for that. And it's often an admin that you're able to Kerberos. And it's pretty much the same for AS rep roasting, except you don't need the password. You just need the username of a valid user. And so it makes it a lot easier. Um, any questions about that? I know there's a lot of stuff on that side. Yes, Nathan? The patch, Julian, do you happen to
Just set good passwords that can't be cracked. You're supposed to set like a random. You're supposed to set a password of at least 56 characters long as randomly generated according to Microsoft. But sometimes people don't do that. Well, okay, so I guess a little bit more background is that Kerberos is only meant to be for machine accounts, which if normal people don't log in, the account would be saved. Sorry, not machine accounts, service accounts. So the password would just be saved somewhere else on the service that you can access that account. So no one's entering that password. That's why it's long and complex. For AS rep roasting, you can only do that because there's a security setting that's been turned off, which is required Kerberos pre-authentication. You shouldn't turn that off, but if you do, you're vulnerable to that.
Yeah, and for cracking, that's a good point because the way you're cracking is you're using Hashcat in a word list. So just use any simple one like RockU. These systems are often designed to like have easier ones for you if you're pen testing. And so with RockU, you're able to crack them, but if it's 56 characters long, you're not gonna get that. That's why often they do they do that. So you're gonna need like a supercomputer or something if you want to get that. Which luckily we're not at that stage yet. So there's coercion relay attacks. Some popular ones are Petit Batam and Shadow Coerce. Petit Batam uses the RPC to authenticate, and Shadow Coerce uses SMB, the file server VSS agents. Pretty much, you're using Windows protocols to force remote authentication of your SMB share, and then you upload that, it executes the code, and then you're in. It authenticates, and then relay and hash capture. Uh, you're able to capture NTLM hashes from your coerced authentication using a little tool called Responder, and it'll capture back that info. Then you use netexec to find and relay the vulnerable SMB host if SMB signing is off. Um, and then, yeah, you'll be able to list them out and relay the hashes back. And you can gain lateral movement and privesc. Yes.
What you need and what you get.
So often you'll gain like, yeah, yeah. It's often as admin than it remote. Yeah. Because it pretty much like reads your SMB share as its own, and so it'll execute anything in it as admin. Another little Microsoft thing that they thought might happen, but is not going to happen realistically. Yes, in a way. Another popular one is NoPack. It's a combination of two really big vulnerabilities. One, creating machine accounts without the little dollar sign, and Kerberos ticket confusion. It allows you to impersonate privileged users by exploiting how the Kerberos tickets are used um, or issued. And then you target AD environments with the misconfigurations so that you're able to privilege escalate. All you really need for this attack is just a low level user, and you can use netexec to pretty easily run it. And yeah, you'll get full System 32 system level access with this attack. And Print Nightmare, another little Halloween one for us. Um, it's a pretty big one. It pretty much just lets you add a malicious driver to the machine that the computer thinks is a printer. And so it acts like a DLL, which is like pretty much the files that the computer kind of runs off for apps. And DLLs are like the top area rootkits are put. And so it's because of that, because they run at system level access. And so if you just use Mimikatz and impact it, you can just create a DLL by adding a little fake printer driver, and it's broken. And yeah, I don't it's crazy that Microsoft has this kind of stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Yep. I don't think so because I don't you're likely probably not printing stuff and there's way too many printing vulnerabilities. So just turn the printer off. That's all I have to say. Just start using a typewriter. So sticky keys is another big one. This is Julian's favorite. So once you RDP with like just into the machine, you can press shift 5 times to execute sticky keys and it'll swap it to command exe at system level command prompt. So you don't even have to have any creds. You're just on the Windows login screen and the system level command prompt pops up and you can do whatever you want from there. Yeah. So it's pretty busted. Um, yeah, no reason to have this. A lot of machines are kind of protected against it, but it's not a default thing. You have to specifically set this up, so it's not often in there. But if you're doing like a little lab or a little pen test, they might have it there. So it's always something to check, especially since it's so easy. And then post exploitation. So once you're already in the machine, so you can do some password and hash dumping with Mimikatz. Another big one is using netexec to automate it as well. And in packet, secrets.dump or secrets.dump.py, another big one. So those three can go ahead and find any passwords and hashes and just give them all to you. It's very effective, and you can use Hashcat to crack them all. Um, yeah, those three tools, very big, definitely recommend using. Privilege escalation. So you can use WinPs. It's like LinPs. It finds all the misconfigurations, weak services, CBEs it's vulnerable to. But it's very noisy, and I don't recommend using it because on Windows it's pretty unstable. Um, you know, I've thought about using it before, but I've looked up some things. It doesn't seem that reliable, so I wouldn't recommend using it. And there's also potato attacks, which that's a whole thing that I'm not getting into, but it gives you system level access, and there's like several of them. So if you go to the slide after, you can see in the comments I linked a little website to it so you can look in further. There's also a cool tool called Seatbelt. It's a little funny. They got the little ASCII of a seatbelt. I thought that was pretty funny. And then yeah, that's about it. Here's additional resources. So WADCOMs, you can pretty much plug in the like creds you have, the services, the tag type, and the OS, and it will just give you the commands to find vulnerabilities and execute them. And VulnLab is pretty good about Windows training. And then down there, a presentation from last year on Windows hacking, and it is very good and goes a lot more in depth than mine. So I recommend checking that out. And yes, Adriel. Oh, any questions? I went pretty fast on that. Yes, Adriel. Or Andre. Potato. Uh, I like juicy potato. Uh, but hot potato is pretty funny. So, but yeah, I'd have to say juicy. Any other questions? Jake, I think you had a question. All right. Well, if you have any questions after, you can come up to me or Yulian and ask them. I'm volunteering Yulian for that. All right. Well, have a good one. There's more pizza if you want.